Hey guys, US Minuteman here. Today I am going to talk about politics and anything related to that fact as far as guns go. And most of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about has happened over the last year or so, um, perhaps a little bit longer. Um, talk about how I feel about these things, talk about um, other people's views, mostly like the anti-gun views. Also, throw in a few examples of like mass shootings and things that I believe uh, won't help or will help any sort of gun violence or any sort of violence in the future. So to start off, Second Amendment, it's pretty clear. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. All that stuff. It's been said thousands of times, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the purpose of the Second Amendment is for tyranny. And a lot of anti-gunners will be like, well, the U.S., come on, that's not going to be, there's no tyrannical government coming, they're not trying to take away all your weapons, blah, 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 blah. Well, that thinking is what the government and any sort of person in power, any sort of government in power, wants you to think. The whole idea is stepping stones. They take one step, one step, one step. Eventually, they're going to get what they want. So, I'm going to give a few examples here of tyrannical governments in the past that have implemented gun laws and then did what they wanted. So, let's start with Ottoman Turkey. They implemented a gun control law, took away guns, in 1911. Actually, I think they did it between 1886 and 1911. They implemented the gun control laws. Between 1915 and 1917, 1 to 1.5 million Armenians were murdered by the Ottoman Turkey government. Soviet Union implemented a gun control law in 1929. Between 1929 and 1953, 20 million anti-communists and anti-Stalinists were murdered. Nazi Germany and occupied Europe. 1938 gun control law implemented. Between 1933 and 1945, 13 million Jews, Gypsies, and anti-Nazis were murdered. Now, that one was a particular one because everyone knows about the Holocaust and that type of thing. So, but regardless, he still took away guns and got rid of their ability to fight back. Just how it works. China. Between 1935 and 1957, gun control law was implemented. Between 1949 and 1976, 20 million anti-communists, rural populations, and pro-reform group were murdered. Alright. Guatemala. Gun control implemented in 1964, or 1871 to 1964. In 1960 to 1981, 100,000 Mayan Indians were murdered. Now that's a particular one because I don't know how well a tribal and a very, I guess, unsophisticated society. It might be a different, I don't know a lot about the Guatemalan and the Mayan Indians, but regardless, there was some form of gun control laws that resulted in mass genocide. Uganda. Gun control law implemented in 1970. Between 1971 and 1979, 300,000 Christians and political rivals were murdered. Cambodia. In 1956, gun control law implemented. 1975-1979, 1 million educated persons. Free thinkers. That's the whole idea. And that's the whole point, because When the Second Amendment collapses in our country, then they'll go after the First Amendment people. People who talk on the media, people who talk on the internet, who voice their opinions. They want to silence those. They want to silence that. Because anybody in power doesn't want people to fight through, propaganda, through force. So those are the two big ones. They already chop at it very, very discreetly as possible. They censor things, censorship. You look at other amendments, search and seizures, that type of thing. Without warrants. The government will push it to a point, but once they get the Second Amendment gone, if they get all our guns, for example, if they got all our guns, what's to stop them from getting rid of the rest of the amendments? That's just how it works, and to think that it can't happen is ignorant. Now, do I think we're on the verge of tyrannical government this second? No. But it's a step-by-step process. They're going to chop away at our rights slowly, and eventually it becomes tyranny. That's how it works. And the first thing to do is to disarm them. And since we have a big history of guns, big history of revolutions, civil wars, a big gun culture, it's not they're just going to come in and take all our guns away, because we're going to fight back right away. So they're going to take the quote-unquote assault rifles, which civilians do not have. They are semi-automatic rifles. Next they'll say, oh, pistols are too concealable. Let's get rid of those. Next they'll say, shotguns are too powerful, too deadly. One round could just blow someone 20 feet, which is actually not true. But, anti-gunners probably think that. Not everything that happens in the movies is not true. Then they'll go after, scoped hunting rifles. That turns people into snipers. No, it's a bunch of BS. It's all about people control. So, first thing, background checks. Background checks are a good thing, in my opinion. They always have been. Universal background checks, when they were going for them this last bill that they were trying to pass with the assault weapons ban attached to, or with it being attached to the assault weapons ban. The universal background checks talks about getting rid of the gun show loophole. Well, there is no gun show loophole. All FFL dealers at gun shows have to do a NICS background check. It's how it is. They always have. But they're trying to get to the point where all private sales have to do background checks. Well, okay, yeah. If you do it there, maybe you could do that. But the problem is, you can meet someone and say, oh, I have this such and such, this Glock at home. When you want to drive over, check it out, however much you're going to sell it for. It's impossible to police. First of all, criminals already have this black market of firearms. It's just how it is. Just as much as they do with drugs. I mean, you look at marijuana. They're starting to legalize it places, but there are still places that it's illegal. So you're going to have this illegal market as well as the legal market. So it's just not going to work. But as far as background checks go, I think they need to be a little bit more extensive. Now, might be a minor inconvenience, but here's why I say this. The mental health considerations for people buying guns has to be taken into consideration quite a bit. Now, that would have stopped two, that I can think of, two mass murders. Virginia Tech and Aurora. Cho, I believe his name is, the perpetrator of Virginia Tech, went to see a psychiatrist beforehand and was deemed a danger to himself, although he denied having any sort of suicidal tendencies. but he was deemed a danger to himself and possibly others. Now that should have been a flag immediately to a background check for him to buy the guns, because he bought the guns afterwards. Okay. So, and I believe he did it through a dealer, and he went through a background check and whatnot. I will look that up. But I do know for a fact that the Colorado Aurora shooting, James Holmes, he went to a psychiatrist as well. And the psychiatrist even told police that Holmes was a danger to others or danger to himself. But the police kind of brushed it aside or didn't listen or didn't take it seriously. Well, you know, that could have stopped him from getting through the background checks that he got to get the AR-15 he got, to get the shotgun he got, and to get the pistol he got. And all the ammunition is in place. But he would have been caught on those. And he probably would have tried to find some other way, because somehow he got explosives as well, which is illegal for a civilian to have. So, he probably would have blown something up. But that is how 2 mass murders could have been solved, or stopped, or delayed, or something. Something would have prevented it. Because the assault weapons ban, first of all, would not have stopped that. Stopped either one of those. First of all, the Virginia attack was done both by pistols. You know, that's just how it was. So was Columbine. As a matter of fact, Columbine happened under the Clinton assault weapons ban. They both, those 2 perpetrators got weapons that were not considered under the assault weapons ban. Columbine, Aurora. Now, an assault weapons ban might have gotten him not that AR that he used, but he still would have had the shotgun and the pistol, which the shotgun was actually used first, believe it or not. So an assault weapons ban would not have solved them. He still would have had other weapons. It still would have happened. The mental health background checks, making them a little bit more extensive, but not really limiting law-abiding citizens, targeting it in a way that would stop mentally ill or criminals from purchasing these weapons and have them flagged. So that's what I have to say about that. And on that note, the assault weapons ban, I was watching a few videos, and usually it's Piers Morgan who talks about why a citizen would, or a civilian would need an AR-15, the military assault rifles as he likes to call them, which are not. It goes back to the Second Amendment. It goes back to tyranny. You want what the possible tyranny power could have. Now, having us the AR-15s, you know, they have tanks, drones, bombs, all that stuff that we really can't have. So theoretically, we should be able to have that stuff, but obviously, realistically, that's not a good thing, or not a plausible thing, I guess. But an AR-15 is not an assault rifle, and it's not what the military have, which is the M16. Okay, ours shoots semi-automatic, military shoot automatic and 3-round bursts, and they probably have semi-automatic fire as well. So, to say they're military style, they're not, but it's a weapon that is more. It's a better weapon for defense in any scenario. There are several examples of people using an AR-15 as a defensive tool. AR-15s are easier to hold, especially for someone of smaller stature like a woman. They're easier to aim. The recoil is good for a woman or smaller or someone who's not that strong. to be able to handle. Shotguns, I've shot a shotgun. They kick. They're harder to aim, believe it or not. They are harder to aim. They are not this wall of pellets that just blows everything out in front of you. You do have to aim a shotgun. And because the recoil is a lot worse, it takes a lot more time to get back on target. So therefore, you actually have an easier chance to miss. Also, with multiple pellets, you can hit the perpetrator with some of them and miss with some of them. And who knows where those go. They could hit somebody else. And people say, well, you just need a handgun. Well, have you ever tried to shoot a handgun versus a rifle? I've shot rifles my whole life under being a big hunting family. I've shot rifles my whole life. I've done pretty well. So I'm pretty competent in shooting a rifle. I've never actually shot an AR-15, but I bet if I pick one up, I could probably be pretty good with it. First time I decided to shoot a pistol, other than a small 22, 45, 9, 40, whatever I picked up, it was hard to shoot. First time I picked up my dad's 45 to go shoot it, I played about this big or so, 20 feet. I couldn't hit it, an entire clip. It took training. It took real training, which people should get anyway. But it took a while for me to get to the point to where I can control the muzzle, control the trigger pull, do all these things in a non-pressure situation where you would have a lot of pressure, a lot of adrenaline in a self-defense scenario, just to hit the target. So that being said, a rifle is a better choice than a pistol for self-defense. Now obviously, if you're out every day carrying, you're concealed carrying, a pistol is a better choice. Just because you can conceal it, you can't conceal an AR. But anyway, and also, rifles kill, pistols wound. So when you're defending your life, you need to stop that threat, regardless of what it is. A rifle will do that. A pistol may not. I heard a story of a woman, it was a stalker or an ex-husband or somebody. She went up in the attic, she had a pistol with 6 shots. 6 shots. Not a lot, not much less than 10. 4 shots less than 10. And she emptied the gun into the guy that broke into her house to get her, to do harm to her. She hit him 5 times out of 6. He still lived. He got away, he ran, and if he had decided to continue, he probably could have killed her, even being shot 5 times. So pistols have a disadvantage as far as stopping a perpetrator, especially when you're not perfect on your aiming. So that's brings me to my next point, the high capacity magazines. First of all, ARs don't have high capacity magazines. Their 30 round magazines is their standard. The 100 round magazines can be considered high capacity. Pistols, some Glocks hold 17, some hold 12, some hold 10, some 1911s will hold 7. You know, whatever comes standard is what a standard clip is. Each gun, magazine. That is how it works. When you look at a Glock 17 rounds, you know, you buy a 33 round, that's an extended magazine. That's a high capacity magazine. Now, that's just comparing the difference. So saying that high capacity is over 10 is BS, and it's not right. That being said, you assume that 10 rounds would be enough, or anti-gunners will assume that 10 rounds will be enough. That may not be the case. I know one in I don't remember where it was at, but A man had an AR-15 that he used in self-defense. He had cameras rigged around his house, and he was watching them, I guess. 4 men stormed his house, armed. I think one of them had a rifle, a couple of them had pistols, and blah blah. 4 men intending to do him harm. They were all masked up. It looked like a gang hit or something. With his AR, he fired a lot of rounds. Now, I'm pretty sure he fired more than 10 rounds. Now, imagine he only had a 10-round magazine in his AR, or even if he had a pistol, it doesn't matter what he had. If he only had 10 rounds, that means now I know you can't cut bullets in half, but 2.5 rounds per person. And that's if you hit them, which you may not, you may miss. And that's also assuming that that's enough to put them down. It may not be. So limiting a law-abiding citizens' amount of bullets that they can have inside a magazine could be life-threatening. So, and that being said, it's I know it's never really came up, but a registry is a bad thing. That's actually really first step to taking away all guns. Because if the government registers your firearms, it'll know where all your firearms are, who owns what. That's when they can make plans to take them away. And then once they take them away, it's tyranny, slaves, all that stuff. So that being said, that's just how I see it. So people have to understand that guns aren't the problem. Like I said, Aurora and Virginia Tech could have been stopped by paying attention to the mental health of these 2 individuals and flagging them. So I think that's what should happen. If you go to a psychiatrist for any reason, and you're deemed unhealthy or unstable, you should be flagged, and your background check should fail every time. Unless, for whatever reason, there's a lot of evaluations to or disprove your mental state. Not undo, because if you're on medication, you can always stop taking them and revert back. But if you go to a bunch of sessions and are deemed incorrectly diagnosed, and then it's a different issue. But it should be flagged if your mental health is a problem. And then when you look at everyone talking about these mass shootings, 0.6% of murders are these shootings, these assault rifles, as they like to call them. Very, very, very few are used. Most of them are pistols. As a matter of fact, hands and feet kill more people than guns. Who knew? And here's another thing. I was watching a debate between a pro-gun advocate, I don't know, there's a lot of them, and Pierce Morgan. And he will throw out this statistic, 39 or 35 or 40, he kind of jumps around a little bit, gun murders in Britain every year. That's a very low number. It really is. But what he doesn't say is that Britain's gun crime rate was already going down. The gun murder rate was already going down before the gun ban over there. So, that may have helped a little bit, but guess what? After the gun ban, all other violent crime went up. You are 6 times more likely to get mugged over there than in America. Rape is higher. Theft, robbery, assault. Those are all higher over there, believe it or not. And that's what he doesn't tell you. And that happens in Australia as well. When they implemented their gun ban, yeah, their gun murder rates went down. But the rest of them, murder in general, goes up. While other violent crimes, rape, robbery, assaults, those go up. But they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that because they don't want you to know the truth so they can get rid of the guns, because they have an emotional response to things that happen, like the mass shootings. Another thing, I want to reference another not mass shooting, but one that could have been in Clackamas Town, the Clackamas Town Center here in Oregon, which I am not far from. Far enough, but it's within driving distance. He used an AR-15, the perpetrator, that he stole from a friend who got it legally. Another reason why an assault weapons ban or any sort of legislation would not work, because he stole it. Funny how that works. Criminals stealing weapons and not following law. Funny how that works. But anyway, he shot 3 people. Now, 2 were fatal, and 1, I believe, was just wounded. I believe that person recovered. But 3 people. Why only 3 people? It was in the mall. Well, a citizen there with a concealed carry permit, which it was a gun-free zone technically, but luckily a citizen, a good guy with a gun, did not listen to that, or did not see the sign, whichever. But he showed a threat of force to the guy, to the perpetrator. And then that person took his own life. Ran away, took his own life. So, people who commit these crimes don't like show of force. They don't want to be shot at. That's not how it works. They want to do their deed and then they usually kill themselves or give up, or sometimes they'll have a standoff, but you know, but this is a good example of a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun. And not only that, people will say, well, if the good guy had the gun, they could just made it worse. Well, guess what? That guy with the concealed gun and his permit made a judgment call. He showed his gun, and the guy saw him and ran, but he chose not to fire because he knew, or he saw, people behind him or in that general vicinity, and he knew that if he missed, he could hit them. He used judgment. Now that's how most people who conceal carry, that's how they think. Anybody who's properly trained, goes to classes, which I encourage, they know these things. He used proper judgment and he did not fire, and then he took cover. But that action saved lives that day. So telling me that good guys with guns don't save lives and that can make it worse, it's you're not going to get that by me. So, in short, I am pro-gun. The only piece of legislation that I will ever be okay with is kind of stronger in the background checks as far as mental health, targeting criminal organizations, that type of thing. And then, you know, hopefully we can stop things like that. Also encouraging locking up, because when you look at the more recent one in Newtown, Adam Lanza stole the weapons out or from his mom. He took them from his mom and went and shot his mom and the kids, you know. And my heart goes out to anybody who is a family member or a victim from any mass shooting or any shooting in general. You know, it is a sad thing, and it's something that we need to debate over. But you know, taking away the tools from law-abiding citizens is not the answer. We need to go after mental health, and punishing people who commit these acts, and you know, stricter punishments, I think, is kind of the way to go. Not punishing law-abiding citizens. Anyway, this is U.S. Minuteman here, and please give comments and questions down below. If for any, I assume most of you are pro gun if you're watching this. If you're on the fence, you know, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. And if you're an anti-gunner, well, you'll probably comment something about, oh, you're stupid, blah blah blah, whatever you're gonna say. But just please be as respectful as possible. You know, I don't want to result to name calling or, you know, getting ugly. I have no problem debating with anybody who's anti-gun, but let's do it civil. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. If you like my video, please subscribe. Like my videos if also, and I will see you guys later. And keep calm, be out there, and carry smart. I will see you guys later.